Hi, everyone, and welcome to Media Capital, a podcast where consumer investing meets media innovation. Today, I'm excited to welcome Eline Van Der Velden, founder and CEO of Particle6, an award-winning AI production company known for creating viral, social, and AI content. Eline's background in physics drives Particle6's unique methodology, which combines scientific creativity with advanced technology and AI, making content that resonates and reduces production costs by 60%. With a decade of experience across platforms like BBC, Sky, Hearst Networks, and Amazon Prime, Particle6 specializes in high-quality TV shows, digital campaigns, and immersive experiences. The company has produced over 50 programs and has received over 1 billion views. Many awards as well, which Eline will tell us more about on today's show. Particle6 is also creative production partner of MFG, where we collaborate to push the boundaries of storytelling, often blending traditional techniques with emerging tech like AI to do more with less for emerging brands. So in this conversation, we unpack how she's reshaping what impactful storytelling looks like, how her team makes complex ideas both accessible and unforgettable, and why, when she's not running Particle6, dreams of saving the world with nuclear fusion. Welcome, Eline, to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hi, nice to be here.
So, nuclear fusion, I'm very intrigued about your personal story and how you got to create Particle6 because it's a very interesting evolution to where you started. Let's kick things off with your personal story. Tell us a bit about your background and who is Aline when she's not a founder?
When I was 13, 14, I was a very ambitious performer. So I said to my parents, oh, I must go to performing arts school. I want to be either Britney or I want to be like James Cameron, the director. And they said, if you want to do theatre or anything creative, you must go to the UK. It's like the creative powerhouse of the world. So they thought, and I came to the UK to do performing arts, and it was incredible. I went to this brilliant, like, fame school. We did dancing, singing, acting. It was musical theatre. It was everything you could possibly wish as a 14-year-old girl. However, I was good at maths and physics, and I was okay at the musical theatre stuff, but I wasn't gonna make a career out of it, but I really enjoyed it. And so my teachers, I was doing A-level maths and A-level physics, and they were really encouraging me to go down either engineering or physics. I got lucky and I got into Imperial College and I studied physics, and then I did a master's in nuclear fusion, for which I went to Lausanne in Switzerland because they've got this big tokamak reactor, which is a nuclear fusion reactor where you put deuterium and helium and you squash it together and you put lots of pressure and temperature on it and you hope that the particles fuse. Now, I was excited about it because I'm concerned about energy in the world and how do we live longer with more energy. When I heard that it would be another 50 years until we would solve this problem, I thought, I'm not going to spend 50 years in the lab doing MATLAB and computing. I think I'll go back to the acting and the fun creative stuff.
I would love to know how you got to create Particle6. I see where this is going, but the unique methodology that you have with Particle6, I think this is what is quite intriguing. And I think it always going to start to make sense given your background in physics.
Yeah, exactly. So I went into acting and I started performing in period drama series in the Netherlands, in comedy series, and then I went to LA. And I very quickly saw what was happening on set and how cost intensive it was. Hair and makeup and trailers and catering, and it's incredibly expensive to produce things. And then the whole YouTube, I was in that right time in my 20s when YouTube was up and coming and everyone wanted to make a funny sketch on YouTube. And so I think I made over 50 sketches with a group of friends in LA. And we were just making really stupid stuff. And it was all about figuring things out and trial and error. And most of it is bad, got to be honest about it. But some of it was brilliant. And I always heard that the great painters, the great artists were great artists because they got to make so much stuff. And it's almost how prolific you are as an artist that allows you to then make a few great things in there. And James Cameron, I think it was, or Steven Spielberg always said, done is better than perfect. And I also learned that you got to produce and you got to finish it. That's more important than perfecting it until the nth degree, which I would do when I was younger. because I was a perfectionist and you want to get it as perfect as possible, but finishing is even better. I then started to get into improv comedy. So I did Upright Citizens Brigade in LA, and I really enjoyed a lot of improv. And I then realized very quickly that I was more interested in the creative behind the camera and producing things and producing these sketches and making them go viral. And we had so many viral hits that I then thought, okay, I'll create some of my own comedy roles. And so I came up with a character called Miss Holland, which was like a female Borat. You can still watch it online. It's still out there. I went round Venice Beach with a very thick Dutch accent, being like, hello, I want to come to America. I was young. I was making lots of silly stuff, but it did really well. It became the most viewed show on Daily Motion, which is where we had a publishing deal with them at the time. It got millions of views. And then it won loads of lovely awards for Best Online Comedy. And that led me to getting it commissioned with BBC Three. And BBC Three was brilliant at the time because we were used to making stuff for so little money because it was for YouTube. We were doing it off our own backs. It was our own money. So we had to make it cheap. We didn't have any money. I was tutoring physics on the side to make my comedy sketch living work for me. And we learned how to be really clever and how to make stuff. And we basically reinvented the wheel for production and reinvented how production should be done in a digital age. And so that's how my scientific sort of nature came into it. And I just looked at it like, how can we create this really high quality stuff for less? And BBC was really clever because they were putting out very low tariff digital commissions. So BBC Three commissioned Miss Holland. They said, oh, you only have this small budget to produce it. And I said, I can do that. But you're supposed to get a production company on board and say, I've got this commission. I'm the actor, producer in it. And then they would produce it. But no production company would take the commission because it was such a low budget. And so the BBC turned around and said to me, look, you've already been producing this for the last 10 years. You're the production company. And I said, oh, I suppose I could be. And that's how Particle6 was born about 14 years ago. And I had 5 commissions from BBC Three. And then I also started to do lots of corporate and commercial work for lots of VCs. And we did all of their portfolios, and we did founder stories, and we did product videos. And we really started to build and use that mechanism to produce things for less to the advantage of more people. And eventually in 2022, GPT was launched, and I thought, this is my era. Here it comes. The tech has arrived. I just love the combination of tech and creative and optimizing it. And it just means we can do so much. And I'd love to go into more detail on how we optimize production and make it so much cheaper than it used to be, and yet keep the quality and the storytelling and the creative really high.
Absolutely. There's so much to unpack there. And I have several questions. I was just smiling at your examples because I think some of the most creative moments in my life have come when there was little or no budget. And I think also, if you look at some of the most famous movies that made it, one that comes to mind, Dirty Dancing, I think was a 6 million budget or 4.5 million budget. I think the box office income at the time was about $250 million, 250 million on a skinny budget. And we do get asked a lot of questions from founders about what the right budget would be for a creative. So I'll come back to that because I think I'm also curious to know about your own projects, if there were some examples done on a small budget and how that performed. So just coming back on Particle 6, actually, what I'm interested in, what we are interested to know, it's about the capabilities, how you're using AI at Particle 6. Because when we were going through some of the presentations, you had such a thorough framework for pre, during, post production, and how you're using generative AI essentially at all these different touch points. But you also have a fantastic way of extracting the ideas, right? There's a whole debate about, would AI replace us, and would that be a danger to humanity? We can go into that as well later on. But I think you still got to have that creative juice, right? So I'm quite curious how you're balancing that out with Particle 6.
I'm a creative, right? So this is the first thing I always tell people. I don't want creativity to be replaced. The joy I get out of using AI is the fact that to visualize or realize one of my creative ideas, I can do it with less. So I don't need to spend a whole year of my life filming a short film and scrambling a budget together in order to film that. I can just do it by myself. And I think that will democratize creativity, and it means that more young creatives can put their ideas out there, which they weren't able to do really before the YouTube era. And the YouTube era meant you could just get it done, right? So for example, we had a great clip called The Gender Bias Riddle, where a father and a son, they get into a car accident, the dad dies, the son gets rushed into hospital, and the doctor comes in and says, "I can't operate. This is my son, who is the doctor." I went round the streets asking people the answer, and only 1 out of 10, which is on average, knew that the doctor was the mother. And that's the type of thing that we pitched to the broadcast, and they said, "Oh no, we're not interested." And then I made it anyway, because that's the type of thing I do. And we could make it cheap. We could just grab some cameras and hit the streets. And it got 14 million views straight away. And the impact is it's been used throughout BBC Academy, it's been used in universities. That video has had just on life is really important. And so with AI, the beauty is that I think you can do that times 100, and you can have that impact times 100. And that's really what we would like to have. And so for brands, the equivalent of that means that they have a great creative, they want to get their message out there. We can do that in a better way because we can optimize the storytelling of it, we can optimize the key messages of it. And it's an aggregation of minor gains. And this advice, very scientific again, is that you want to just, there's every little dial, you want to optimize it so that you have the best possible response that you can have on a budget. And I don't think AI will remove creativity. I just think it helps. For me, it's the same transition as for accountants that had to suddenly use Excel, and they were all worried that their jobs were gone. No, their jobs weren't gone. They just moved to doing it on Excel instead. And I think it's the same. Creatives aren't losing their jobs at all. They're just using different tools to get to their final creative point.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's a lot of terminology and a lot of technical important things that you need to have in order to create such films. You can't just rely on ChatGPT to tell you basically how to do it. Or if you are a programmer, if you don't understand essentially the problem that ChatGPT is trying to solve for you, how could you know whether that's right or wrong? Probably less so applicable here because I think there's so much creativity at stake. Even before the advancement of AI, there's so many classics like Dollar Shave Club, the Ice Bucket Challenge that essentially they were done on zero budgets. I think they were just brilliant ideas. Could you tell what idea early on could lead to a good project or a brilliant movie?
You do have a feeling. And I think to your point is you can make a lot of bad stuff with AI, right? That's been proven because we've seen a lot of bad stuff that uses AI. So I think it's still about having the right creative directors and producers at the top to distinguish for you what's going to be good and what's not going to be good. I would say that with a few of the viral videos we've made, we had that feeling like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm sure the people who did the ALS challenge or the Dollar Shave Club, that guy, by the way, is total improv comedian. I'm sure he knew that was good. Like, you have a feeling. You don't know if you've struck gold, but you'd have an inkling. They call it like the genius flying through you when it just clicks creatively. And I love that feeling. I love it. You can have it in a pitch, you can have it when you're brainstorming. And the most frustrating thing is when you have that feeling that you know that something is really good. And it must have been so frustrating back in the day where you couldn't just execute it, right? Like you'd have to wait to get the money, you'd have to wait to get the crew, and you'd have to wait for all these things. And so many things never got greenlit and they never actually went into production. And that is no longer a barrier. If you get that feeling that something's going to be amazing, you can go and make it. That's fantastic.
So, coming to a point of tension, which probably you get asked a lot, AI and the traditional agency business model. Is AI breaking the agency model, which essentially it's a time-based commercial model? I was reading this latest report from Lion State of Creativity, I think was released last year. Probably the next one is coming up fairly soon in light of the festival. And I think it was about almost half of the agencies that were interviewed said that they are describing their client relationship as being difficult. And I can't help it but think whether AI has, of course, something to do with it. Are we at tension in terms of trying to make things better, more effective, optimized, doing it with less? Is that counterintuitive to a time-based commercial business model?
Think obviously Zuckerberg came out with the whole we're going to completely destroy the ad market because they're going to optimize every ad on social with different things and testing it. And this is image based for now, but they can probably do it with video as well eventually. I think some of that will be automated. So, the way you see a visual of a brand and what image it will be and what colors, it's likely that will be automated. But I think Spark, it might be done in cahoots with a person. So I might say to the AI, look, I want to create a moment like the ALS challenge, or I want to create a video like the Dollar Shave Club. And it's that spark that would create that final piece. And it's still at this moment in time, I don't know what the future holds, but I think in this moment in time, it's very much the creatives working with the AI to get to that genius piece and then to execute it. I don't think the AI by itself goes, let me make something that's going to be extraordinary for this brand. I still think it's done together with a human right now, but I don't know where it will go. I hope it doesn't completely remove us because that would be a bit boring. And I don't think it will for some reason. I still think it's a human creativity because we would make art and things regardless of whether there's some great people out there, right? That there's great artists out there that are making great art. So I don't need to make it, but I still make art. And so I think it's that human need to create that will carry on. And so humans will carry on creating.
I'm with you. I think we're both in the same camp. Obviously, there's this ongoing debate among prominent scientists. AI is poses an existential danger to humanity.
But that's separate to the creativity question. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if AGI comes along and it takes over and we're all dead within 20 years.
In the broader context, I think there's so much at stake. We're still trying to figure out the regulation around this. And I think it's becoming so much harder to distinguish between what's real and what's fake. But I think in the context of creativity, and I was watching the video that you guys released yesterday, and the usage of generative AI and the digital twins, and your ability to take a TV ad spot essentially and translate it in no time from English to Spanish to German using the power of AI. It's absolutely brilliant. I think it's fantastic.
Those are the positive ways in which AI can contribute right now. There's so much it can't do still, which I am frustrated about, and I hope we can soon do everything that I want to do in AI.
What would that be? Tell us, where do you see the limitation?
Oh, there's so many limitations. And obviously, we're really on the cutting edge. So we're really trying to use it on all fronts. And we have complete digital twins and stuff. But you can generate lovely scenes. To make one person talk in a scene, perfect, no problem. We can get that. It looks completely real. To get two people talking in the same frame is already a limitation. But it's moving so fast. Give it a month, I think it'll be solved. And that's the good thing about all these problems is they get solved very quickly.
I thought that the media landscape and operating at this junction between media and venture is fast changing and is evolving so rapidly. But I think being a creative person in this day and age, I think it must be fascinating. You probably are tweaking the methodologies and the processes like so often, given the fast pace at which things are changing.
If I were 22, I would be sat behind my desk and creating a film all in AI. It'd be wonderful.
Essentially, you do get to create a dozen, right? Or even more throughout a year working with all these really fascinating emerging brands as well as really established companies. Just to stay on a positive note, we always have this shout out moment during our episodes where we're curious about our guests. If they could think of somebody, could be perhaps a mentor or even you're one of your clients or an advisor that had a really big impact on you. Who would you give that shout out to and why?
Gosh, I've had so many great mentors in my life. Two come to mind. I'm absolutely thrilled to be outputting and using AI in so many really cool projects like the ones we're doing with you. My physics teacher gave me a little globe, like Eline, I know you want world domination. And that I still have it. I was like, she knew at 16 years old in my late 20s with a company called Maker's Channel. And the founder and CEO, investor of that, Martin, he was brilliant at showing me how to lead a company to that point and how to really be transformative. That was the digital era, and now it's the AI era. And I hope I can replicate what he did.
I never actually answered this question, my own question, in any of the previous episodes. But if Tom listens, I do want to also give a shout out to Tom for bringing us together. And I was smiling when you mentioned the story about your physics teacher, because I was in Austin for South by. You were flying there. I think we missed each other by a day. But then he messaged me on WhatsApp, oh, you should two connect. You both want to conquer the world. He said something along those lines like that. And that was just a couple of months ago. And yeah, here we are. We'll have this conversation, I'm sure, in New York in a couple of weeks' time. I'm curious, there's been probably so many learnings along the way. Are there any lessons that stuck with you? Anything that you wish you've known earlier when you started scaling Particle 6?
So when I was graduating from physics, obviously a lot of physicists would go into either work for McKinsey or consultancy or banking, and they were really stringent numerical and analytical tests in order to get into those businesses and to work there. So I wanted to create the production company that is like the McKinsey of production companies. And so I always created a really entry system in order to come and work at Particle 6. And it has resulted in us having just an incredibly strong workforce where we never work overtime, but we work really hard during the day. And you've seen how fast the team gets stuff done and the caliber of the work that gets done. It's just the most high achieving media tech professionals in the world. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm so glad I learned that along the way. I have also learned in the past decade to really stick to that because you want to preserve that sort of ethos and it just makes everyone connect. And I'm really proud of that and really proud of the team. I think they're great.
I can only attest to that, and also the agility that you guys have shown in the last couple of weeks, putting all these creative directions for our companies is just brilliant. I'm curious about any tools or frameworks that perhaps you're using at Particle 6 that perhaps you wish more of your clients would be using just to make things a bit easier. Is there any specific such frameworks or tools that you think would be in handy?
Yes, so I'll be doing the workshop on how to create the perfect brief because I think the perfect
Yes.
brief leads to a really great commercial. And so GPT is amazing to create a perfect brief because it will tell you all the parameters it needs, what the input needs to be, and it can really guide you through creating that perfect brief and all the information you need to have in there. So I would say that's the number one tool I would recommend to anyone. And we've got a brief maker that we'll be sending to people to help them as well. But you can also just do it yourself with GPT and ask it to guide you through making the perfect brief.
One question we often get asked by the founders that we were investing in, how much should we allocate for creative budgets? Is there a specific percentage of the media spend without giving you obviously any context whatsoever? How do you normally address such questions?
You could do it as a percentage of the media spend. That's a good way to do it. I would say with our parameters, it's slightly different because everything we produce, we want it to look like a $250,000 ad, but we can do it for 75 and $125,000. And so I would say that's a good range to be in. You don't want to go too low. You can make stuff really cheap, right? But it's lenses, it's a level of director of photographies, it's a level of edit, it's level of color grade. All those little dials can be turned down and you can make stuff, but they can also be turned up. And that's what subconsciously exudes premium. And it's such a subconscious feeling that you get with an ad if something is premium or not. And that's really what you want to think about. So with us, I'd say 100,000 is the same as 200,000 and 200,000 is the same as 400,000. Let's say about half, right? So something that's 200,000 with us is about as premium as it gets, right? That's 500,000. It'll really exude, and it should really exude that premium feeling. And it depends on the brand.
Do you have examples of ads or TV ad spots that were fully CGI generated?
Yeah. So CGI is what people used to use, and CGI was really expensive. The AI stuff we use now is much less expensive, but looks even better, I'd say. So we have some AI ads, yes, that are on our website, and you can have a look at them.
Any specific one that you're most proud of?
We've got the donut ad. I'd probably look at that one. I think it's the most cohesive and it shows what can be done, but there's so much good stuff. You could do anything. That's the great thing. Sky's the limit, really.
We have a quick fire round of questions, Aline, before we wrap up. So these are short, sharp, 30-second question and answers. What are some of the most interesting projects that you're working on right now?
I'd say your projects.
Outside of MFG's projects, which I'm sure will have them live in less than 2 months, which is really exciting.
Yes.
Any other, perhaps not TV ad spots, any other films or
We're
documentaries?
doing feature film stuff. That's all AI. We're working with some of the biggest players in the world in the drama space to use AI in drama, television. We're using it in factual entertainment projects. So we've got a paid development project with Channel 4. That's an AI show. So there's lots of TV stuff in development, and we're also launching an AI influencer. And we can do that for different businesses. So I think in the future, every business will have their own AI influencer. And so we're working on that, and we'll be launching those AI influencers for different businesses. So it's basically like their representative.
In terms of leaving aside specific projects, but perhaps could be a project, what's your proudest moment? I know you have a lot of awards.
It's not so much about the awards. I think it's that feeling that we hit on earlier, that feeling when you know you've created something incredible. And I think the gender bias riddle was a real nice one, and Miss Holland as well. I had another show called Putting It Out There, which was all social experiments on the street. And we would test different things out, and they were really socially significant things. So, for example, if you had hairy armpits and you raised them, how people would react, or if you would drink somebody else's water, or you'd kiss them, but you wouldn't drink the water if you'd spat in the water, even though it's the same as kissing. Just, it's stupid, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it makes you think. And we did a lot on the obedience model. So if I wore a high vis jacket, I could tell people what to do. If I didn't wear the high vis jacket, people thought I was crazy. There's so many social things that we should be aware of. And I like making content that makes people think a second time.
You must have some fascinating moments during every other day, every week, creating this. I'm pushing myself to be more of a creative person. I used to. I think over time, I had to focus on a lot of more operational, structured, I guess, parts of the business, but I wish we could trade a day. I'm also dialing in with our brands. I love it. It's such a, it's just fascinating to go through these creative directions and just see everything come to life. It's such a fulfilling moment before even you see the brand on TV. The fact that you're putting all those pieces together and seeing their reaction is just priceless.
You had a good creative sense on which ideas would work as well.
Let's hope it's not just the beauty of the ad, but also they perform, which I'm sure they will. And last question, this is going to be a tough one. I think there's so many exciting things, but what excites you most about AI?
Is the democratizing of creativity. Our industry has been renowned as nepotistic, and it's very hard to break through. I knew nobody, and it was hard. And for me, even this AI era and having specialized in it opened so many doors. And I hope that it does the same for any young filmmaker in their bedroom right now. If they can make something incredible using these tools, that's a huge door opener for them. It just gives opportunity to people. That's what's great
Yep,
about it.
exactly. Underserved demographics, markets. Aline, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Just in the nick of time, 2 weeks before the sprint we've got in New York, which is I'm really very much looking forward to that, and the creative workshop. I think I'm also going to learn a ton. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for joining us on Media Capital.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
If you're as passionate about consumer investing and brand advertising as we are, don't forget to follow the pod, leave a review, and check out more content at mediaforgrowth.com.
Fundraising just got a whole lot smarter. This May 22nd in New York City, we're flipping the script on traditional pitching, bringing you 15 top investors ready to pitch to consumer founders. Instead of chasing VCs, You'll hear directly from them, understanding not just their investment thesis, but their personality, vision, and approach. If you're a Series A+ consumer brand, raising now or in the next 6 to 9 months, this is where you need to be. For more information, visit the events section on mediaforgrowth.co.